Well, hello everybody. Welcome. Bonjour tout le monde. Ceci va être en anglais, malheureusement. So this is going to be in English, and hopefully we've got people watching us. It says that yes, I'm online. Finally, we're trying to get organized so we can come to you in a better way, in a better format, and try to at least be how can I say, understanding of some of the people that don't understand some of the legal terms, and to try to help you to digest the information we're going to be giving you. So, anyways, first of all, I need to take a few minutes for housekeeping, and usually that was Rhonda's job. So, but anyways, to kickstart 2024 with the revolutionary movement, join the join the CPU's movement in our campaign. Anyways, again, we're restarting 2024 on a very good foundation, and we how can I say, invite everybody to really listen, to share our information. If you don't have, if you have questions, please email us. We'll be able to try to answer you as much as we can. And sometimes it takes a little while, but please have patience. So, as we embrace, I'm going to be reading this to you because I keep forgetting to say everything cohesively. So, to stay cohesive, so, as we embrace the new year, the CPU is launching an ambitious and transformative publicity campaign across Quebec and Ontario. This is more than just a campaign, it's a movement of a call to action to change progress. But it's not just Ontario and Quebec. We've been doing our campaign, sending our to, and you'll see this is it here. This is our campaign, our door hangers, okay, for people to deliver in their communities, and then we're sending some through the mail as well. But anyways, because of what's been happening in Canada and how we're being, how can I say, banned from websites and everything else, or like Facebook and everybody, we're not able to get the word out as much as we can, because we've noticed that they're not allowing the CPU's information on Facebook a lot. We've reposted some of our stuff, which was really not news, like our letters, and they won't allow us for the people to see our letters. So how do we reach people? So that's the big question of the day. How do we get to reach more than half the population of Canadian citizens? Because that's what we need to do. So, anyways, what we're doing is phase one is reaching 75,000 homes. And that's why we picked Quebec and Ontario, so that we can start with these two provinces, because they are major in, with the most amount of people that we can reach, as well as trying to get the word out. Okay. So, our goal is clear and bold: to reach 75,000 homes, spreading our message of empowerment and renewal. Because a lot of people don't understand, or might not go on Facebook or any of those social places, and they won't know what our options are. So the CPU is making sure that those options are out there. Okay. So as much as we can. So with the help of people, because everybody has a responsibility, okay, to this country and to their communities. And it's by going out to your communities that you'll be able to amass, new friends and new cohorts, I could say, to be able to help you spread the word and to take back our country for the people before we lose it. It's totally crazy what's happening now. And if we don't stop things fast enough, we're going to end up nowhere. So, again, the message is really hard to get across to people, as with the CPU trying to kind of place things in the right order. We can't do anything in Canada. We can't change our laws. We can't do anything until we have our power. We don't have any rights to be able to change any laws in Canada, or to come up with a new law, as natural law. We can't impose that. We don't have the legal rights to do it. So as long as we don't have the legal rights to do anything, we can't. So what is our solution? We go after the rights that we can get, that we can enforce legally, because anything that's not legal out there will be termed as terrorism. We can see what's happening now. If you support Hamas, you're a terrorist. Hello, that's totally ridiculous, because what's happening out in the world right now, people have to understand what happens, out in the world, and especially with Israel and Palestine right now. People have to understand what's happening is actually, people are being murdered, victimized, and these are civilians. So both Israel and Hamas is wrong there. So we have to protect the people who are getting murdered uselessly, okay, at the hands of Israel right now and Hamas. So we need to protect both peoples. And how do we do this? Well, that's standing up, for our rights and our rights to speak at the international level and everything else. So we can't do anything until we take back our rights, okay, and remove the king, okay, the crown, from having stolen our rights in 1982. So the more you're going to learn about the CPU, the more you're going to understand things. So I'm going to go back to why it's so important to join the CPU, because it's about our rights and we can legally do this. So, trying to reach 75,000 homes seems like, not that much, but at least it's a goal that we've given ourselves to be able to reach these people, and then to be able to expand on that, having them expand on everything. One person gets 10 people, then 10 people get 10 more people, and it finally flourishes in the way that it should, to be able to get the word out, because we are richer and more powerful than we know, but we need to exercise that right, and we need to do it legally. And it's not by trying to pull strings here and there, or this little one thing, or trying to fix that would fix everything. So we have to go to the root cause. Okay. So helping us with getting our door hangers out into the public, and getting people to read, hey, there is a solution. You can, it's in French and English, and we have a solution out there. It's viable, it's doable, but the people have to stand. So without the people, nothing can get done. So anyways, the more that the people can help us help them, the more we'll be able to succeed in the end. So your contributions make a difference. Every donation counts. Your generous contributions are the fuel that drives this campaign. So, with your support, we can ensure seamless delivery of our message directly to the doors of 75,000 homes to start with, via Canada Post. And this isn't just a donation, it's an investment in a brighter, more engaged future for all of us. And then we've got, I need to thank some of our members, because our members have been delivering them by hand, some of them. Okay. And we have one gentleman who did 2,000 already. We've seen a little bit of action on that. But, it's going to take time. We're going to have to redo this over and over, so that the people understand that, yes, there's an option. Because when you first see this, you go, what is that? Right? So hopefully they'll go to our website and read and get informed, and, decide to join the CPU, because in our members meeting, we're keeping a lot for our members meetings now, because of security reasons, and to go more in depth in our meetings in regards to educating our members. So like next, we meet with our members every Tuesday in English, Wednesday in French, for the French speaking people. So now we're starting to discuss what we're going to be discussing like today. Okay, so we're going to go more in depth. So today you're going to get a shorter version of what we're looking into. And, but our members will have access to more in-depth information in our community website, and, as far as having materials to be able to read. So we really, really have to give our members, a heartfelt thanks, because they've been really supporting us, sticking by us through thick and thin. They're not losing faith. So it's pretty amazing after all these years, and they understand the problems, the issues that we've encountered over the years, as to why we're not able to get anything done the way that we thought we would get it done. So we're going to be discussing that after. So we send our deepest gratitude to our devoted CPU members who tirelessly distribute door hangers in their communities, especially those, and who spread the word. And your dedication and hard work are the backbone of this campaign. I mean, the CPU can't do anything unless we go out and get more people. So bringing our collective vision to life, one door at a time, is how we can do this. So people need to be part of the change. This is your chance to be part of something bigger, to contribute to a cause that resonates with the hearts and minds of our communities. And whether through donations or active participation, your involvement is crucial, because we can't go and fight your city hall, whatever's happening in your neighborhoods. We can't go and help you there, other than, if you're a member, then we can give you a little bit of information and give you support. But we can't tell your mayors what to do and what they can't do. That is the people in your communities, okay, your cities and your environment. So, we have a chance to make 2024 a year of impactful change, starting right at our doorsteps. Now, your support, whether financial or through volunteer efforts, is the key to turning our vision into reality. And that's everybody's vision of being free in Canada and being in charge over our governments, what they can and what they cannot do. Because right now, there is nothing that we can do other than we are actually, how can I say, subjects of our government. Okay, they say, oh, Canada has a democracy. Democracy belongs to the parliamentarians, not the Canadian citizens. Oh, but you have the right to participate in elections. Yeah, good luck with that one. Okay, so we need everybody to join us and support us and help us pave the way to a brighter future with the CPU's 2024 campaign and everything that we're trying to do in regards to human rights here and even abroad. So every step that we take together is a step towards more engaged people, more empowered communities, and your action matters. So please help us by either donating, participating, and spreading the word as soon as possible. So that takes care of the housekeeping. Now we're going to get to the real issue. Okay, and this debate has been going on since 1982, actually since 1960, when our rights to decolonize came about. Okay, so you have to kind of know what transpired way back, and understand the gist of everything. And it really surprises me that our politicians are so dense. No offense, they're dense. Okay. I mean, I have to tip my hat off to Danielle Smith, in a sense. Excuse me. Oh, itchy throat doesn't help. But anyways, Danielle Smith, she's really seems to be really trying hard, and to get her point across in some of the things. But then you see little glitches here and there, and then like even for Quebecers, separation. The Quebecers found out way back they couldn't separate. Now, can Alberta separate? Can Saskatchewan separate? Can they actually claim sovereignty? No, they can't. Okay, and this is I'll show you why. Okay, so I'm going to share a screen with you so that you see exactly what the information is. And, you know, I'm just going to do that share screen now. Just going to remove this one here. Okay, remove source. And then share screen. And it will be window. Okay, where am I here? Oh, there we go. And now share screen. I hope you can see this. I'm just going to go back here because now I lost the page. There we go. So, you know, who can separate? Can the provinces separate at all? Can they not separate? I know the language that we're going to be using here is a little bit troublesome for some people. It used to be for me way back when, but I got used to the words. And if there's something that you don't understand, please let us know. So here are 7 arguments against secession in Canada. A quick overview. Okay, and secession means separation. Okay, separating a province. Now, for decades, and especially during these past few chaotic years, the debate surrounding cessation, particularly in regions like Quebec and Alberta, has stirred discussions. Parties and politicians are potentially misleading citizens and Indigenous peoples and preventing them from considering alternative means to gain greater autonomy. While cessation may hold appeal for some, it is crucial to scrutinize these arguments in the context of international law, historical agreements, and their broader implication. This scrutiny emphasizes the importance of respecting territorial integrity and safeguarding Indigenous rights. So when a province wants to decides, oh, well, we're going to separate and starts to threaten that. Well, first of all, what we need to make clear is that Canadians across Canada and the Indigenous nations own all of the resources, minerals, everything within Canada together. So one province can't decide, well, we're going to walk away. Okay. And this came up after World War II. And why the countries discussed this thoroughly, because now new countries were able to be made because of decolonization. And after World War II, countries were able to reestablish themselves. So, however, there's some discrepancies there, and that's a whole other show. But and also left to our members, we'll explain it more to our members because it is how can I say it's long. So today we don't have that kind of time for to be able to bring that to you, but hopefully we'll be able to address it soon enough. So anyways, in regards to who can do what and where and when, it's neither here nor there, other than who has the right to do it. And right now, the provinces do not have the right to secede, to separate. And the people in a province, like I said, have the same rights as every other Canadian citizens. And this is why we need to, all of the Canadian citizens will be implicated in if Alberta could separate or not, the wheres and whys. So because in Canada we have Canadian citizens and we have Indigenous peoples, there's 2 separate things that need to happen. And this is how we're going to explain it to you. So now, number 1, Supreme Court decisions. The reference secession of Quebec case by the Supreme Court of Canada emphasized that no province has an automatic right to secede. It highlighted the need for a constitutional amendment process, negotiation, and a strong democratic mandate for cessation. What citizens must know is that if Quebec and Alberta were to pursue cessation, it would involve 2 binding referendums. Okay, remember what I just told you there? Two sets of peoples. So 2 binding referendums. One involving Canadian citizens and another focused on Indigenous peoples. Prioritizing the rejection of provincial cessation by Indigenous peoples. So the Indigenous peoples as well own some of the natural resources. We own them together, different areas, but really by law, it should be together. what we've negotiated, what they've negotiated, and then what's in between is still debatable. So, but right now, for cessation, um, there would be two referendums, one for them and one for us. And for them, well, it would not be to their advantage because there's 633 reserves in Canada, and there's a multitude of nations, but at the international level, they're considered one, okay? One peoples. So just to clear that up, they're not different nations at the international level. They are one nation of Indigenous peoples. So to better formulate that, it's just that they would have priority because we are the settlers and they are the ones who were here first. Okay. So it would not be to their advantage to allow Alberta or anybody to separate, because then they'd be walking away with their natural resources of all the Indigenous peoples across Canada and even further, Turtle Island. Okay. So now, international recognition as a new nation state would also necessitate the consent of Canadians and Indigenous peoples, highlighting the significance of a collective decision-making process for this substantial political change. So what this means is that all of a sudden Alberta, Quebec, and even Saskatchewan, if they want to, or if they think they can, would become separate countries, nation states. And that's what that means. It would become their own little separate countries. Or as some would say, oh, well, in Quebec, at some point, they say, oh, we'll join the United States. Well, that can't happen either. Okay. And neither can Alberta. So, and here's why, because this was really discussed in depth in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s, and even to this day, because now we're looking at either forming two countries for Israel and Palestine, or because the Palestinian peoples have the right to self-determination and to take what's theirs. Okay. So that's another story. Now, again, so this is what it would mean. It would mean that you'd have to remake a country it would become a country within a country. Mind you, they've got borders, and then there'd be the border between Canada and the United States, and then their borders. So when they looked at this at the international level, it was an absolute no. Okay. So there's no use really discussing this, but we need to put this to rest. So non-compliance with international law. So would Alberta, Quebec, and, be in compliance with international law? Mm-mm. So non-compliance with international law in Canada's secession discourse is due to politicians, lawyers, and Supreme Court justices deliberately ignoring the country's international commitments. This breach of law affects the rights and freedoms of Canadians and Indigenous peoples and prevents the country from achieving true democracy, accessing natural resources, and turning taxation into dividends. So because they're allowing Daniel Smith to go along and, make threats, and then they allowed Quebec to go along and make threats, while the Supreme Court justices, okay, and this should be a course in law, and an automatic course in law in regards to our history. Quebec could absolutely not separate. There was one question that was brought, was that, okay, well, what if, what would they need to be able to separate? Well, one answer was, well, all the Canadian citizens would need to have a referendum to allow Quebec to separate, or even Alberta. But at the same time, would that be possible? Yeah, we're not saying it's not possible, but there's another problem. Whoever makes these statements needs to remember the Indigenous peoples. And then they need to remember all of the corporations, all of the investments within Canada in our natural resources and everything else. So the international community still has a say in that as well. And they'd have to be recognized by all of the other countries as becoming its own country, its own state. Okay. So I know that there's questions that people have sent. There's questions that we have at the bottom of this page that I'm supposed to answer, but I know I'm cutting that in there. But while we're on the subject, this is why, you know, because of politicians, lawyers, and Supreme Court justices deliberately ignoring the country's international commitments, this breach of law affects the rights and freedoms of Canadians and Indigenous peoples and prevents the country from achieving true democracy. Because if they followed the law that Canada is bound by, as well as the UK, up until 1982 and even up till now, there's an argument there. Both have signed on to these international agreements, and yes, they are absolutely binding. But the Canadian government and the UK for a while did not want the lawyers to use this or the people to use this, so they lied about it. Okay. And then on our websites, they kind of use double speak to kind of show, yeah, they're bound, but no, they're not bound. They even had the balls to say this in 2004 at the United Nations and got bitch slapped for it. That, oh, well, Canada's not, really bound by international law. Well, holy crap. I'll tell you, it made for some interesting reading. Okay. So anyways, no, international law is binding, and it's a contract. It's contract law, and for all of the countries. So yeah, it is binding, and Canada could be brought up on the pedestal for that, and not the pedestal, but can be charged and have to answer questions. So because they're stopping us with all of these lies and these assumptions and keeping people busy with, oh, Alberta, was sovereign. And well, the provinces are sovereign only under Canada. So yeah, you can say they're sovereign, but they're not sovereign like you and I would see sovereign. Okay. Sovereignty belongs, yes, to the state at the international level, which is Canada itself. And then everybody that falls underneath, which is the provinces and the municipalities. But it's when we vote in elections, we've given away our power to the federal government, to the provincial government, and to the municipalities to do whatever they want. And they only had to give us the basic minimum of rights. And then with the notwithstanding clause, or even at the provincial level, they can take away those rights by what they've written in our Constitution. Okay, what they've agreed to, which is wrong. Okay, so everything was done illegally in the sense of international law in relation to our rights. And it's up to the people, though, to fix it, because our justices, what really shocked me the most is that Canadian lawyers don't know our history. The history of law, which is based on natural law, okay, and common law, which is misunderstood by everybody, actually is no longer taught in school, in law school. And they don't teach international law in law school. And this is what I was told by, one of the law professors that teaches at 3 universities for law courses in Ontario. Excuse me. So given that, it's like, wow, okay, I thought the law was the law. Okay, so let's send a letter to the UK saying, okay, we want to have our rights recognized as the equal shareholders, co-owners of the Crown of Canada as a peoples, with an equal partnership with the Indigenous nations. So by law and by regulations, normally when you send something like this to the other country under foreign affairs, then that has to be brought into Parliament. That was never done. I never in a million years thought they would have ignored us. I kind of thought they might, but with a little bit of pressure, try to get an injunction in the UK against them to bring that to Parliament for them to make a decision on finalizing our self-determination from 1982, which was not done and stolen by the Canadian government and the provinces from us to begin with, trying to put that back in order was futile because of corruption. So again, I claim ignorance there and assuming. And then when I thought, well, okay, well, the law is the law, right? Still, the law is the law. You hear everybody talk, oh, the rule of law in Canada. We follow the rule of law in Canada. No, you follow Canadian rule of law, not the rule of law itself. The Canadian legal system has been subverted. Throughout my research and everything else, we've seen that it's been subverted. And then not only coming from me, but from some heavy duty legal experts and lawyers, that have written about it, that have opened that up, but nobody listens and nobody really knows how to go about getting this done. Well, the only way to get this done is through the Canadian citizens, for the Canadian citizens to rise the proper way. And that's why nothing's been done in over 62 years. So we're going back, like, how much can Canada claim ignorance for things they had to have done 62 years ago? Laws had to be protecting us from 62 years ago. So, okay, they could claim, well, it's taking time, but at the same time, they didn't. So back to this here. Why are we having such a hard time getting listened to in Canada? The corruption within our law, the bar associations, the justices, and the ignorance of lawyers, not by their own fault. Okay. If you're not taught something, you don't know about it, right? And then you're going to listen to, hey, if the bar association says this is this, then it's got to be right, right? Well, you got to go and look outside. And this is what we've done. And thank goodness that happened. Okay. Because we're on a more solid grounds than we've ever been. And yes, we've been right all along. And yes, we can clean this up with everybody's help. And especially at the international level, because this is happening in many countries worldwide. And the lawyers are getting together now to start fighting this. And even some of the justices and everything to bring back and also protect our human rights. Okay. Because our international human rights are the only rights that truly protect us and protect everybody. Now, hundreds of lawyers are seeing this at the international level. And this is the benefit that we've had to be able to break into that area and to see what's coming up. So it's very interesting to be me right now, okay, in the sense that I'm finally in the place where I should have been all along. And it's very interesting. So time will tell what will happen. So now if we're looking at, number 2 here, international law and territorial integrity. What does that mean? Is that it's the territory, and what did the international law say? So international law generally supports maintaining existing borders, territorial integrity, unless there are compelling reasons such as denial of self-determination, unfair treatment, or rights violations. The necessity of cessations in regions like Quebec and Alberta, which already have significant autonomy, is questionable. Why is it questionable? Now, if we're going to be claiming, well, we've been denied self-determination. Yeah, but you already have lots of rights. Oh, it doesn't matter. Our government right now forced us, since 2020 has been chaotic in Canada. And this is something that the Canadian citizens and the Indigenous nations should have decided for themselves. Do we want to follow the WEF, the World Economic Forum? Is the World Economic Forum acting worse than China? Yes, it is. Because they've implanted their board of directors into our government, which should be even worse than what China and other countries are doing to try to subvert elections in Canada. That's nothing compared to what Justin Trudeau has, being a World Economic Forum young global leader, and Chrystia Freeland sitting on the board of the WEF. That is no longer, and the WEF is not even a lobbying group in Canada. So really, they're illegal. because in Canada, you have to be registered for lobbying to change policies. Something to think about, people. So now, what gives us the right to say self-determination? Well, we're the actual shareholders, co-owners of the Crown of Canada, along that's the governance of Canada, and then the Indigenous peoples. So with the Indigenous peoples, it's the country, it's the state, it's the boundaries, everything included. So we can't we can't separate this country for Alberta and say, well, the federal government mistreats us. And then they can go and walk away. No, because you're walking away with the assets of all other Canadian citizens and Indigenous person in Canada. Those assets in Alberta do not belong to just the Albertan people or Quebec or Quebecers, what the natural resources, they belong to everybody. So that's one thing you need to understand. So at the international level, again, you have the international community and all of the investments, everything that's happening in Canada. It's not about waking up one day and saying, oh, I want to separate and I'm pissed off and boom, 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 I'm going to walk away. Come on. There's a lot more involved in that, people. Okay. So non-compliance with international law, that has everything to do with our rights again and what Canada has signed on to. So here it says this breach of law affects the rights and freedoms of Canadians and Indigenous peoples and prevents the country from achieving true democracy, assessing natural resources, and turning taxation into dividends. So while we're battling between, Quebec wants to separate and then Alberta wants to separate and everybody's focused on that, you're not focusing on the big picture. All we need to do is claim our rights and to have an audience where we can bring that right to fruition and for a vote to happen. Because who can vote against Canada? The international countries. That's who. And it's not really the courts, because right now they're ignoring the courts. And this is what Israel is doing right now, is trying to ignore the courts. But what they can't ignore is every other country that is against what's happening. And that's where we will shine. That's where we need to rise here in Canada so that we can bring this to the international community and say, hey, since 1960, this has been illegally done by politicians who have infiltrated every government, humanly, for them humanly possible to do this. They've infiltrated every government to keep us under control and to not know exactly what our rights are and what they are not, because they want to have control over us. And now they're trying to take control worldwide. Only we, the people, and, the group of, over 300 lawyers, more than 300, all agree. It's the people that are going to change this. So without the people, we can't just go and try and do things. So that's why you need to support the CPU. We know what we're facing. We know what we have, the hoops we have to jump through. We know which laws to argue. We can argue, and this is one of the reasons why Canada is trying to avoid bringing in international lawyers and, try to make them jump through hoops to get their licensing in Canada, because they know too much. So it's unbelievable what's happening, So I know I'm rambling on here, but I really need you to understand what's happening here in Canada. We're not going to get this done in Canada. Even if we change political parties, it isn't going to happen. They are all part and parcel. And you have to see who supports who here. So if they're not ready to relinquish all power to the Canadian people, most of the power, okay, the veto rights, if a politician is not willing to say, yes, the minute we win, it's the people that have veto power over the government. Not to say, we might look at the Constitution. What's the Constitution? Right now, the Constitution, if somebody were to really look at studying the Constitution, well, you have to know what's missing out of the Constitution to make it illegal. You have to know what happened in 1982 that can have it considered not even finalized and why it's still sitting in the UK. You have to know all of these things. So this is what we're about. We kind of found out, the more things stretched, the more we found out, and now we're sitting actually in the right place. So as long as we allow our Supreme Court justices or any of our justices and lawyers and politicians to, say, oh, separate the provinces, and you're wasting time. Okay. So why is Danielle Smith doing this? Either she doesn't know the law, and this is why, I kind of tip my hat off to her, because she's trying in a sense, but at the same time, is she guilty of defrauding the Alberta people, or is she just oblivious to the history? Because I'll tell you something, from what I've seen, we bring in politicians, we vote in for people who don't even know what our rights are supposed to be, how the laws are supposed to be created. Are our laws just or not? No, they're not. Have they been fooled around with? Yes, they have. Does the Canadian government and the provinces follow the rule of law? Absolutely not. So these politicians, we're bringing in politicians, whether from the municipal level, the federal level, provincial level, and who don't know the law, who don't know what our rights are and what they're not, and they don't know what's missing in the Canadian government system to make sure that we're well covered, as we're supposed to be. So, hey, ignorance or purpose for Danielle Smith? Time will tell. Up to you to know. I think she's just oblivious. Okay. So why bring back, if they already know that Quebec could not separate, why does Alberta think it can? The wool could be pulled over your eyes. Okay. So I'm going to leave that at that. So we've already done, why we're not able to have our rights because of all of these people. So, and blaming them, absolutely. So now we're going to go to the UN Charter and self-determination. What happened in 1982? What happened in 1960? Well, in short, the UN Charter does not recognize the right to unilateral cessation from an existing UN member state. Okay. So in regards to that, then for Canada or the provinces to be able to separate, okay, when you're looking at bringing something at the international level, it's Canada that's brought to answer questions. They're the ones who are being charged at the international level, not the provinces. The provinces don't have to go. Neither does the municipality. But at the international level, they actually really make sure that it's like the government, okay, the state, and municipalities. So anything between the government to the municipalities, right across Canada, is what's considered at the UN. Okay. So the provinces can't do anything. They're not even looked upon other than management. Okay. It's a form of management, and that's all they are. Because the real sovereignty, the ones who would have to have the referendums would be all the provinces right across Canada. Okay. They're the ones in charge of the people for the federal government. And that's how it works right now. And even though they say, well, we're allowed to say no to certain things. Well, yeah, because, again, some of the rights that were, separated in the Constitution. So the provinces are held to one thing. But the thing is the provinces are supposed to have the same laws right across the board. They're not supposed to have different laws. They're not supposed to be allowed to not leave the province. You have rights that the government, the federal government, nor the provincial governments, nor the municipalities can override in our rights. And they're called these are rights that they can't derogate from. even in a time of war, pandemic, or peacetime, or whatever. It's a no zone. Okay, no go zone. But yet here they ignore it. So who's going to penalize our governments for doing this, our provincial governments for lying, and municipal people who are making laws, bylaws, that don't even know our rights, you know? So that has to change. There's a whole bunch of things that need to change before we can truly have our freedom. But it doesn't begin until you sign your Citizens Convention of Consent. We're all on the same path, not going different areas. We have to show unity. We have to show what we want, and we have to prove it to the world. That's where that's at. Okay? Because legally, we don't even need to ask permission to our government. We just need to show the amount of people who are willing to do this. Okay? And bring it to the right people. So, again, I'm talking a little bit more here. But anyways, while I'm talking, you're able to keep reading here. So, historical agreements and territorial unity. Historical agreements, such as the Royal Proclamation of 1763, emphasize the importance of maintaining national unity and territorial integrity. The proclamation recognized Indigenous titles to lands not ceded by treaty, potentially complicating cessation. So another thing that can hinder secession or separation is the history here. So 1 second. So when you're reading stuff that says, oh yeah, we might be able to, Alberta might be able to separate if everybody agrees. Excuse me, but it's not just everybody agrees. Again, it's agreements that had been taken place that need to be respected. Protection of Indigenous rights. The Jay Treaty of 1794 acknowledges the rights of Indigenous peoples to freely cross the U.S. and Canada border due to their traditional territories spanning the international boundaries. Okay? What are the international boundaries? That's our borders. So for them, they are on Turtle Island. The Indigenous peoples' claim is Turtle Island, which is North America, all the way down to Mexico. Okay? So right now, Canada and U.S. have the Jay Treaty that they recognize that the Indigenous nations can just cross the border they just need to show their status card. Now they're having problems now getting that recognized because of the corruption. Okay? In removing all of our rights globally. Okay, there's more discussion on that issue as well. But right now, this could be argued. And if the government of Canada didn't want Alberta to separate, they just have to slap them with this. Why have they not? Because they want you to be confused. They want you to be barking up the wrong tree to keep chasing your tails or chasing our tails. Okay. So as long as people are being misled and believe everything or think that, these politicians know it all, they don't know. I would use another word there, but I'm not going to say it here. Dick all. But anyways, I said it. Now, they're able to go right across. And that was because of 1763, okay, and 1794, okay. The Jay Treaty came about because of 1763. So once you go and read those treaties, and we're going to go through them in our members, our next members meeting with this information. So again, that would stop it. That would limit it. Okay, so cessation by Quebec or Alberta could disrupt Indigenous rights and agreements. So, but because of that, Quebec and Alberta cannot separate, period. It's not even a worthwhile subject. So limitations of the notwithstanding clause in our Constitution, that does not belong at The notwithstanding clause cannot be added to our charter because it serves to eliminate our rights. Okay. So now, the notwithstanding clause, section 33 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, is primarily a temporary tool to assert authority over certain constitutional rights and freedoms. No legal provision, including the notwithstanding clause, can justify violating our fundamental rights. These must also be upheld in a secession scenario. So, during a separation of a province, they have to uphold our rights. And that's already been said in the Quebec court case. Everybody forget that? Danielle Smith doesn't remember it? Didn't bother looking into it? Who the hell's who are her lawyers? Well, as far as I'm concerned, those lawyers, if they don't know our own history, should not be lawyers, should not be representing anybody, let alone a province. Okay? Same with Quebecers. Quebec, the Quebec government, fiddle playing, the citizens. You couldn't do it once, you're not going to be able to do it twice. And that's that. Good luck with that. Unless every Canadian citizen would say yes, and all of the Indigenous nations would say yes, and that doesn't just include, Indigenous peoples in Canada, it includes Indigenous peoples in North America. Okay? So, and according to the United Nations, the notwithstanding clause does not override our rights to freedom of expression or any rights that they are not to derogate from. And even that also includes religious rights. Okay. So the more you know, the more you're armed with, right? So anyways, now these arguments collectively highlight the legal, historical, and international obstacles that secession in regions like Quebec and Alberta would face. Okay. So one positive solution, the desire for greater autonomy and sovereignty through secession, is legitimate. However, secession has no legal basis for success by the provinces. The problem is not necessarily being part of Canada, but the citizens not having their veto rights over elected officials. Steering the debate over secession and the search for autonomy towards national collective self-determination and final decolonization could create a favorable political and societal change. This approach would respect Indigenous rights and international law while empowering citizens of Canada from coast to coast in a truly revolutionary way. Okay. So these were questions that were left, again, that I think pretty much I've answered. Okay, the notwithstanding clause, and according to the Supreme Court of Canada's decision on the reference of secession of Quebec, what are the key points? Well, I have explained all this. So we're not going to go into that now. But again, all of these points could be made, and Danielle Smith would lose her case. And then not to say that the Canadian government would not use that against her, or because the Canadian government is so embedded in the one world government and the WEF, they want these things to happen. Not to allow Alberta to join the United States, but so that the cities can all become autonomous and all be ruled, okay, by corporations, which is now happening. This is what you're seeing. Okay, now you can go to Staples you'll be able to go to Staples to if you need something from Service Ontario. So private corporations will be running our governments. So if you want this to happen, please do nothing. If you don't want this to happen, go to the cpu.ca and join the Canadian People's Union to our membership and join our community. And then together, along with what we know with what we're doing right now, especially at the international level and what we're seeing, it's the right time. It's the right time to move before it's too late. So we need to be able to spread the word out in our communities and everywhere else. And always remember to say that you're when you're doing something, you're activating your civil and political rights with all other person or people that you're speaking with that will be listening to you, all Canadian citizens and Indigenous peoples in Canada. And that's what you need to use for your own protection, is that we're activating our civil and political rights. And that's what gives us those rights. So now I'm going to do stop sharing here. Okay. And go back to this here. So I hope, where am I here? Okay. I'm not too sure what's up. Okay, right here. Now I'm going to go to, I didn't see the chat to make sure that everything is okay. I didn't see you all say hello or talk to me in the chat. I was too busy with my own head, but it's almost an hour now. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Say, hey, the battle's not won yet. And, by the other side, we have time to do this in the sense that we need to stop wasting time and taking the right time to do this. And again, by signing your Citizens Convention of Consent, getting everybody from the age of 15 and up to sign it. You just need to go online if you don't have access to a computer. This is why we're trying to reach the people. Everybody knows somebody with either a cell phone or a computer, or you can go to the library. There's ways of signing your Convention of Consent. Please have them signed. If you need help, let us know. We'll help you with that. Okay. So again, please join the cpu.ca. We had to change everything at the CPU so that our emails can get out there. And we did the power shift is, you're still a power shifter. The power shift movement doesn't change. The only thing that changed was our website and our to change the cpu.ca. So when we send emails, we're not being blocked everywhere, and that we can get the messages out there. But right now we need to really get together. We need to get in line because time is running out. We don't know if we're going to wake up in a possible war somehow, but right now they're aiming for that. You want your rights. We need to do it now. So right now, everybody's working to protect everybody's rights at the international level. That's why that trial is going on at the International Court of Justice against Israel. And, that's if they need to protect our rights. So if our rights are destroyed at the international level, we have no more rights. And that's what makes it urgent. Okay. So all of the lawyers, over 300 lawyers, were all in agreement. International lawyers were all in agreement that, yes, we need to protect our rights and the people need to rise. So we'll leave it up to you. Okay. So anyways, for all our members, we'll see you on Tuesday. And I want to thank you and everybody that helps work with us, that actually, supported us in the past and still supports us now, or whatever point you supported us at. Thank you. Okay. And please, even if you signed your Convention of Consent 5 years ago, it doesn't matter. It's a living document. It's alive. Okay. Because they know that it takes time to have access to everybody. So now we've got a place to send that to. We're not so much going to rely on our Canadian government, waste our time here. It's go big or go home. And we're going big. Okay. So thank you very much. Have a fantastic rest of the weekend. And know that you're not alone. We are not alone in Canada. What you hear on the news, just shut off the news. Start listening at the international news, not Canadian news. Okay. And you'll see that things are different. That, yes, we're not alone. Lots of countries are in the same boat. Some of the presidents from countries are really pissed off at what is happening. They're starting to come out the woodwork. The farmers are making, strides. Lawyers are making strides worldwide. Organizations. We don't see this in Canada. So what we hear that is happening or not happening is on purpose. Okay, it's on purpose. And Canada is the country that is being used to destroy the entire planet's population in the sense of our human rights. They are using us. Canada has been at the forefront of the WEF and of the one world government since I could go back to 1931. Okay. Let's make the change happen. We're not that stupid. Canadian citizens can outsmart our government, hands down, by doing 2 actions, or 3, I should say. Sign your Citizen Convention of Consent, join the CPU, and start going out into your community, passing our door hangers, and then we have our cups that you can get, and help us change the world. Not just change Canada, but we're actually changing the world. Okay. So our solution works for Palestine and Israel. It also works for other countries. Now we just got to get it out there, and that's where we're at. So hopefully one of the countries will back us up on that and actually move it forward. And that's what we need, or I need to focus on right now. But the rest of Canadians need to focus on inside Canada and getting those signatures. Okay, I need yous there. We need everybody. Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.